Welcome back. Continuing our discussion here from top producer. All right, Pete, when you look at the demand potential over the next 5 years, we've talked about the challenges of plants coming online. We've talked about some of these hurdles, talked about needing more credits and all of that. But where do you see the demand potential over the next 5 years for both renewable diesel and sustainable aviation fuel?
So the sustainable aviation fuel pool globally will be about 90 billion gallons by the time most of these airlines want to get to their net zero target, which is 2050. I know it's a way away, but that's the way you have to look at it. When we look at what ethanol was produced in this country right before the pandemic, it would have only covered, if you took all the ethanol produced, it would only cover 1/3 of the U.S. jet pool. So the fact of the matter is, though, Todd, is we've talked about crush plants for soybean oil. We've talked about used cooking oil. We've talked about fats and tallows. Alcohol to jet is the only way we get there. The only way we get there. And the airlines will admit that as well. I mean, it's a huge chunk. Alcohol to jet is a huge chunk of how they get to their sustainable aviation fuel targets.
And it takes 1.6 gallons of ethanol to make a gallon of SAF, is that right?
Yeah, 9 to 5, yeah.
Yep, that is about right. Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. You know, we view SAF production kind of 3-time horizons. You know, today it's all HEFA, right? There's, LanzaJet is coming online, but they're not producing, SAF today, and certainly not from our corn ethanol that we need. And then the next timeline we see is alcohol to jet. We see like a bunch of these facilities need to come online in the 2030 to 2035 timeframe. So for Southwest, we need about 300 million gallons of SAF by 2030 to meet our 10% volume targets. And then, double or triple that by 2035 to meet our carbon intensity reductions. So we need these alcohol to jet plants to come online. And then, horizons beyond that are, newer technologies, nascent technologies. We hope power to liquids gets built out. But yeah, alcohol to jet is going to be critical to our mission here.
That's a big order to fill.
Yep.
So Pete, knowing that it's not just soybeans that's fueling renewable diesel, it's not just corn that's fueling sustainable aviation fuel. I mean, when we first started talking about this conversation, there was talk we're going to need 30 million more acres of soybeans or 15 million more acres of soybeans to meet this demand. What is the reality, do you think, today?
The reality today is that we're kind of maxed out here in the U.S. on how many acres we can actually have. The mix can change a bit, but we've got to look down to South America for a lot of that expansion. And that's where it's going to take place. There's no question about it. But it's the domestication of the U.S. soybean market that is going to be a major disruption to everything that we do. Pete mentioned the Shell Rock, Iowa plant. It is close enough to the river that it is competing with the river bid, okay? So you've got exports against domestic crush that is already set up because of that Shell Rock plant.
We need this demand. We lost the U.S. corn export market last year.
Yeah.
We lost it. We lost the U.S. soybean export market 8 years ago. When you look at the trend is not friendly.
Right.
This could not happen at a better time. Sure, everybody in this room and everybody on this panel would have liked this thing to happen a little bit quicker, but we need this demand.
What is an extra billion bushels of corn demand and an extra 300, maybe 400, but an extra 300 million bushels of bean demand mean to everybody in this room?
Yep.
It means the world.
Yep.
Okay, so the reality is for Southwest Airlines, then, remind us, how do you see this demand growing over the next 2 to 5 years, and what is the crop of choice for you?
Yeah, I couldn't say that we necessarily have a crop of choice, but I will say, corn is very critical to Southwest mission. So as I mentioned before, we do co-own exclusive licensing for a cellulosic ethanol technology, and we are about to embark on building a pilot plant to convert corn stover into ethanol. So we are going to need, our corn farmers. We need those relationships for us. That is going to be critical for us. This is one of the ways that we are getting to our idea of near parity jet as we reach up and down our supply chain. So the up is certainly, we're trying to control our destiny by producing cellulosic ethanol. Of course, we'll need our partnerships in ATJ to upgrade it to the SAF, and then all the way downstream, we're looking at having our own blending operations. So yeah, I would say that all this, as I mentioned, 300 million gallons in 2030 and 700 to 800 million in 2035. And that's the same trajectory for all the major airlines. We all have very similar goals in the near term and net zero by 2050. So, in 2050, the idea is 100% SAF is how we would get there. So it's, as Pete mentioned, it's an immense amount of volumes and in very short time.
It's a lot of corn.
Mila, Chip, Pete, thank you so much for joining us. We need to take a quick break, and then we'll have much more right here on U.S. Farm Report.